he came here, and then we went inside.
Responsible for what happened here today are known to us, and we're inside the home.
I told him, I see a strange car, but I don't know who's that. Can you please come in here? I'm scared.
Imagine a quiet, idyllic neighborhood in Herndon, Virginia. Tree-lined streets. Families walking dogs. Laughter echoing from backyard barbecues. It was the kind of town where nothing truly bad ever seemed to happen. But on the morning of February 24, 2023, that peaceful illusion shattered. At 7:47 a.m., a 911 dispatcher received a strange cell phone call, an open line.
This morning at 7:49 a.m., we received a cell phone 911 call that was an open line hang-up. When we get the cell phone 911 calls, it doesn't give us an exact address.
At 8:02 a.m., another call came in. This time, the man on the phone was frantic. He claimed to have just shot someone in his home. He said it was a home invasion. A man had broken in and attacked his wife. When police arrived minutes later, the scene was something out of a nightmare. It wasn't just the violence that stunned the community, it was the impossibility of it all. People who knew the Banfields couldn't fathom such horror happening behind their white picket fence. What unfolded would soon become one of the most baffling, twisted, and disturbing criminal cases Virginia had ever seen, a tale of betrayal, manipulation, and a brutal crime that no one saw coming. Officers entered the luxurious home on Stable Brook Way and found two bodies. One upstairs was Christine Banfield, a 37-year-old pediatric ICU nurse. She had been stabbed repeatedly in the upper body. Blood pooled around her motionless form. A few feet away lay Joseph Ryan, 39. He had been shot twice, once in the head, once in the chest. The second shot had killed him. The survivors were Christine's husband, Brendan Banfield, the man who made the 911 call, the family's 21-year-old Brazilian au pair, Juliana Peres Magalhães, and the couple's 4-year-old daughter. All claimed to be victims of a random, terrifying home invasion. But almost immediately, police noticed inconsistencies. The scene had all the hallmarks of something staged, too neat, too specific. Officers noted that the house itself was still orderly, with no signs of forced entry.
Call her to see what's going on because it's early in the morning, like, who was here? And then it was destroyed your voicemail.
There was no smashed window, no broken door, and no panic-induced damage. What they did find, however, was a scene so gruesome and clinical it seemed more like a targeted execution than a chaotic struggle. Something wasn't right. There were no signs of forced entry. No evidence that Joseph Ryan had broken into the home. His belongings were placed neatly near the entrance. It looked as if he had been invited inside. Moreover, the timeline of events didn't add up. There was a 15-minute gap between the open line 911 call and Brendan's second call. What happened during that time? Christine's wounds were particularly disturbing, deliberate and forceful, as if inflicted with rage. Not the kind of injuries one might expect during a panicked struggle.
802 911 cell phone call. The husband and the au pair communicate with the 911 call taker. The husband tells the 911 call taker that he just shot a man inside of his home.
They began comparing the physical evidence to the statements given by Brendan and Juliana. Questions arose. Why was Brendan so calm in his second call? Why did it take so long to call for help? On Joseph Ryan's phone, investigators discovered messages from a woman calling herself Anastasia 9. They had been chatting for weeks on a fetish site called FetLife. Their conversations were graphic and detailed, filled with talk of bondage, domination, and blood play. The morning of the murder, Anastasia 9 had given Joseph the address of the Banfield home. But here's the twist, Anastasia 9 wasn't real. The photos she used belonged to Christine Banfield, who had no connection to the profile. The account had been created by someone else, someone with a motive to lure Joseph Ryan to that house. The level of manipulation was chilling. Whoever had created the account had spent weeks grooming Joseph, building rapport, feeding into fantasies, all to lead him directly into a deadly trap. The precision and psychological manipulation involved pointed to a perpetrator who was cold, calculating, and deeply familiar with deception. It was no longer just a murder, it was a digital setup. Suspicion turned quickly to Brendan Banfield and Juliana Magalhães. The police soon uncovered a secret affair between them. Juliana had moved in with the Banfields in 2021 as their live-in au pair. Behind closed doors, she and Brendan had developed a romantic and sexual relationship. Texts, emails, hotel receipts, and late-night messages told the full story. It had been going on for months. For Brendan, divorce wasn't an option. He had a high-ranking job with the IRS Criminal Investigations Unit, a beautiful home, and a child. Divorce would cost him everything. But murder? That would give him everything. The relationship was anything but casual. Investigators found signs of obsession, not just affection, long messages, shared passwords, even veiled plans for a future together. Brendan didn't just want to leave Christine. He wanted to erase her. And with Juliana's help, he thought he had found a way to do it without consequences. Together, Brendan and Juliana devised a plan to eliminate Christine. They created the fake Anastasia_9 profile and spent weeks grooming Joseph Ryan online. He believed he was meeting a willing partner. On the morning of the murder, Brendan parked his car at a nearby McDonald's, waiting for Juliana's signal. When she called to say a stranger had entered the home, Brendan rushed back. Christine was stabbed to death, either before or during Joseph's arrival. Brendan shot Joseph in the head. Then, to make it look like a struggle, he had Juliana shoot him again. They waited 15 minutes, rearranged the scene, and called 911. The planning had all the hallmarks of a perfect crime: digital anonymity, a patsy with a motive seemingly in place, and a victim who couldn't speak for herself. But like many so-called perfect crimes, the execution faltered. The delay in calling 911, the inconsistencies in their statements, and the digital fingerprints left behind all began to corrode the illusion.
Here.
How old's your host kid?
She's 4.5.
4.5. Where is she?
I need to talk to her. She doesn't know anything. What's
Can we get her and we'll go outside?
Yeah, I'm gonna let her.
No, not that she I think he's upstairs. Where do we go? Upstairs.
She's grabbing their 4-year-old and we're gonna go outside.
Okay, perfect.
She's
I know this is hard. Let's get her outside, and then I need to get some information from you.
Brendan told
Brendan and Juliana made several key mistakes. They changed phones and iCloud accounts shortly after the murder. Brendan took Juliana to a gun range just days later. They deleted messages and began living openly as a couple. But the biggest mistake was assuming the police wouldn't dig deeper. Detectives found everything: the fake profile, the digital trail, the motive. Juliana was arrested in October 2023 for the murder of Joseph Ryan. Under pressure, she flipped. In exchange for a plea deal, she agreed to testify against Brendan. Forensics teams recovered deleted texts, traced the fake account back to Brendan's IP address, and confirmed that Juliana's story, once airtight, had holes. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was Brendan's movements that morning, tracked by surveillance cameras and phone pings. What started as suspicion became certainty. In September 2024, nearly a year after the murders, Brendan Banfield was arrested. He was charged with 4 counts of aggravated murder for the deaths of Christine and Joseph. Even after his arrest, Brendan stayed silent. But Juliana's testimony, combined with digital forensics and circumstantial evidence, made the case airtight. One final detail sealed his fate: Brendan was caught trying to help Juliana obtain a passport to flee the country. He was photographed driving her to the Brazilian consulate, an act that not only violated travel restrictions but confirmed his ongoing involvement. Prosecutors used this action to illustrate his consciousness of guilt. As the case built, Brendan's carefully constructed image: loyal husband, devoted father, respected agent, crumbled under the weight of damning facts.
Can you go with Officer Batani really
Why
quick?
don't you come with us?
Yeah.
He has some stickers for you.
I was going to see what's going on because it's early in the morning, like Who was here? And then he was destroyed to voicemail. I called Brendan, it's her husband, he's up there. I call him, I see a strange car, but I don't know who is that. Can you please come in here? I'm scared. I was with Valerie in the car. And then he came here, and then we went inside. The guy, I don't know who it is, he was spanking her. I was just here.
Were you here when it happened, or did you walk up in there and that's how they were?
Yeah, he went upstairs first, and then I went to see what is going on. I left Valerie in the basement, and then when I went upstairs, Brendan was saying, "Police, drop the knife."
So, Brendan's a police officer.
Yeah, he's an officer.
Is he with Fairfax?
No?
Juliana, once facing life in prison, may serve little time due to her cooperation. Brendan, once a respected federal agent, faces life without parole. Christine Banfield is dead. Joseph Ryan, an innocent man, was lured to his death. A 4-year-old girl has lost both her parents. And the community is left reeling. The fallout was immense. Neighbors who had once admired the Banfields were stunned. The Banfields' daughter was placed into the care of relatives. Public sentiment quickly turned from sympathy to outrage. Commentators called the crime Shakespearean in its betrayal. But for those close to the family, it was simpler than that, a love story gone monstrously wrong. The au pair murders are more than a twisted tale of lust and murder. They're a warning that behind the most polished facades can hide the darkest intentions. When love turns into obsession, when greed outweighs conscience, and when deception becomes a way of life, the results can be deadly. Justice has caught up with Brendan and Juliana. But the true cost will be paid by the innocent lives they shattered. It's a story that feels like fiction, but it's terrifyingly real. The manipulation, the planning, the cold execution all remind us that evil doesn't always come with red flags. Sometimes, it's the smile from AC.
Ryan, the man who thought he had executed the perfect crime, was now
in handcuffs, facing 4 counts of aggravated murder. Authorities charged Brendan not only with murdering his wife, but also intentionally luring and executing Joseph Ryan to cover it up. The additional charges reflected how calculated and cold-blooded the crime truly was. Throughout the investigation, Brendan remained silent, refusing to answer questions or confess to any involvement. Every time he was questioned, he pleaded the fifth, hoping to protect himself. But with Juliana's testimony, a mountain of digital evidence, and motive as clear as day, prosecutors were confident they had enough to put Brendan away for life. One of the most shocking revelations came just before Brendan's arrest. Prosecutors discovered that he had been secretly helping Juliana obtain a new passport. Juliana was planning to flee the country, likely back to Brazil, to avoid prosecution altogether. Brendan was caught driving her to the consulate, which only reinforced how guilty they both were. The plan failed, and authorities acted quickly to ensure neither of them escaped justice.
Across the dinner table. Sometimes, it's the one we trust most. Be cautious. Be aware. And never forget, the darkest crimes often hide in the brightest rooms.